Hi, I'm Kyle, and on this episode of the MWA podcast, Sean, Mark, Brian, and I are asking Mike Pekovich the 5 questions. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out his interview on episode 550. So welcome back to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, well, before we get into the 5 questions, let's dip our toes in the woodworking news. So first off, Iron Bark, which has been around for a while, but they have a new a low-angle infill block plane that looks very interesting. I think they're pretty much carried exclusively by Heartwood Tools, and they have some interesting stuff, and this little infill plane looks fantastic. It's made out of figured gidgee.
Yep.
As long as I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, that's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, it looks fantastic, and it's it's your typical infill plane, and of course it's priced accordingly. It's $750, but it is absolutely lovely, and they got some interesting things. One of the things I saw at Texas Woodworking Festival, Leslie with Hardwood Tools had a booth there, and they had this spoke shave that is just very, very interesting. It's kind of like a cigar shave. It's 3/4 inches in diameter, and it has some interesting things because it's got these 2 brass knobs, and you can use that to loosen it up and adjust the depth of cut, and it's really interesting shave. It's not cheap either. It's $305, but it looks fantastic. So anyway, I still need to get with Leslie. We were going to make a trade, and that may be on the trading block. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me, the infill plane is reminiscent of Oliver Sparks's slipper plane.
Yep.
It's not the same plane, but it's that type of low slung infill. It's pretty. That's a pretty.
It's almost got like a Sauer and Steiner feel to it too.
Yeah.
Just the way they cut the shape of it.
Sidewalls.
And the figure Gidgee, I have a couple of Vesper squares with that, and it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I wish he was still making stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad I got the couple of things I have from him, but that's something else.
So Vespers no more.
Well, he's there.
He's there.
I think he's doing. Isn't he doing like major machine?
Yeah.
restorations?
He's not doing anything as far as making tools, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hopefully he comes back to it someday, but luckily I got one of his squares, and I got a couple of his bevel gauges, which are just fantastic.
I have one of his 5-inch squares that is dead 90 out to 4 digits. It's one of the 5 that he ever made. Wow. I'm so afraid to use it. I'm afraid to drop it.
One of the other ones. No, I use it all the time.
Yeah, I'm just so afraid to touch that thing. I'm just if I drop it, it's going to be.
Does yours have the little kickstand that comes out?
Yeah.
I got one of those. Yeah.
I don't let my students touch it. It's one of the few things that does not come out of the drawer when the students are around. But
yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, next up, Bar has a new draw knife out. It's a carver's knife, and I think this was actually featured in Fine Woodworking a couple of episodes ago, and it's fantastic. I think if I remember right, David Fisher did the review of it, and what makes this different is it's a knife edge, so it's beveled on both sides.
Oh, okay.
And I've heard about these types of draw knives. I've only seen one out in the wild and at an antique store, and I almost bought it, and it was pretty much the same price as this one. Brand new, and this one is $190, so it's not cheap. It's got a 6.5-inch cutting edge, but if you're looking for something like that, I think the advantages of these types of knives is just being able to swoop in and out of cuts very easily. Yeah. I think that's why Dave Fisher uses it for his bowls, outside of his bowls and stuff like that, to be able to make those swooping cuts. And it's pretty interesting. I've always wanted to try one out. If you're in the market for one, check out Bar Tools. Absolutely fantastic. And, everything Bar makes is pretty special.
Oh,
and I'm glad that they finally changed the handles on their draw knives and stuff. The only downside of Bar Tools were their handles. They worked fine. They just didn't look the best. Now they have a little swoopy wood grain thing instead of the dyed red wood handles they used to have. So anyway,
Well, they still
They're
have it on
still
their chair
available to
builder.
some.
yeah, I know they
Yep.
still have it on a couple of them. They
And
must
the
still have
acorn nuts are
inventory
still
on those.
hanging out the bottom.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
that's still hanging out the bottom. But yeah,
Yep.
hey,
It's about the blade, not the handle.
it
not the
is.
actual
It always
nut.
has been with them,
Yep.
and they make they always use fantastic metal and always good stuff from Bar. So
What kind of finish are you getting off of a double bevel blade like that? Is it as smooth? I mean, you really have to ride that edge just perfectly.
yeah, like I
it's
said,
not
I've
gonna
never
bevel.
used one, so
Yeah, I don't know.
I would assume the finish is the same. I think it's just the geometry of being able to get into a
Well,
little bit of tighter stuff than you can with
it's-
the standard flat back, whether it be a bevel up or bevel down draw knife.
It's just like using a bevel down draw knife. It's just beveled down on both sides.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, so it just the bevel.
So
is
you
in
can
both
flip the knife over if the handles are set up more like a bevel up.
Mhm.
Then you can get that cutting edge right where you need it just by flipping the thing over. Like if you're
Mhm.
making a steep down cut, you can flip it over and go down. If you're needing to
just-
do a straight cut, you
yeah.
can flip it over and go straight.
So you can really gouge out in the one direction and really smooth over in the other direction.
Right, and you
Yeah,
don't, and you're not, you're not pulling your shoulders up to your ears,
Yeah.
in
Okay.
one, and then having your elbows down below your knees in the other. So
Right.
it's-
Right.
yeah,
Oh,
I think it's.
it sounds like you've used one before, Mark.
I've used a draw knife upside down.
Okay, I've
That
done
was
that.
set up for a different orientation, and
Mhm.
just because that's what the cut required. And I was like, man, I wish I had another draw knife. If you had one of these, you could do it either way, and you could make a sharp cut in either position. Whereas if you had to be bevel up to make the geometry work, you're pretty much working for doing straight cuts,
Mhm.
no curves. So.
Yeah. The next thing we have up is called A Pack of Dogs from Bow Products, which when I was trying to do my stretcher drilling guide for the 1-inch cylindrical tenons, I was looking for all kinds of expanding nuts and things of that nature. And I came across this. It wouldn't work for my application because it's only made for 3/4 and 20 millimeter dog holes. And yes, I did send him a note and say, hey, are you going to make these for 1-inch? Heard back, I'll pass that along to our design team. So I'm thinking that's a big no.
Maybe never. Thanks for asking.
Make your own.
Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting about these is the way they expand. They expand symmetrically. That's one of the things that I had a hard time with looking at any expanding nuts or things meant for bike tubes or stuff like that, is when they expanded, it wasn't symmetrical, and you could never keep that center lead screw or whatever was never concentric as it expanded. And so these expand out, and they have a little knob that you crank on to expand them. So they're basically made to fit into a dog hole, and you can attach fixtures to your bench and stuff like that. And I thought, hey, since I saw those, I thought they were pretty darn neat. I would throw them in here because I hadn't heard of them till I just came across them in a web search. So anyway,
They're pretty cool.
Yeah. And like I said, they will work, in your 3/4 inch as well as your 20 millimeter holes for your MFT tables or whatnot. So yeah, pretty darn cool.
Good find.
Well, with that, let's thank our patrons. So who do we have to thank this week?
For sure. We'd like to give our big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're giving that shout out to our friend Colin Anderson. Colin, thank you for supporting us. And if you would like to join Colin in the support of the MWA podcast, you can go to patreon.com/MWA podcast and help us out there.
Yes. Thanks so much, Colin. Now, on to the 5 questions. Mike.
Yeah.
What is your favorite tool of all time? Of all time, not this week.
Oh,
Our
fine
limit is
woodwork,
23
you
as
shade.
always.
Forever. Your forever favorite tool.
That is so hard. Yeah, because we do of all time for the week, which is easy because you can just pick one you like and it's good. And next week's going to be different. What's the so in 550 shows, what's the number one answer?
Spoke shave.
Really?
Probably.
Probably spoke.
Bandsaw, maybe close second.
I could
Yeah, bandsaw is pretty big.
I
Yeah.
could see block plane. I could see number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of it's just your favorite whatever
Yeah.
tool. Could be.
Elia Bazzari said his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
Oh,
he kind of
boy.
copped out on
Got
it.
esoteric.
I've been accused of getting a bit obtuse with my answers, so I'll try to keep it straight. I was making a list. I was getting pretty darn close to that 23 number, and I
Oh boy.
backed it up. So I'm fudging just a little bit in that I'm going to say it's my shop apron and all the stuff that's in it. So
No.
small gaggle.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like, okay, yeah, you got a lot of tools, but yeah, but what do you travel with? Okay, yeah, but what makes it into your apron? So I figured
So whose shop apron are you rocking?
Texas Heritage.
All right,
Nice.
fantastic.
Nice.
It's
Local
great.
boy done good.
Yeah, my local in there. He's so great to work
Yeah.
with. I had another brand of apron, and I wore it long enough to know exactly where I wanted all my pockets. So I went to that company and said, "Can you do this?" And I got the answer. I'll pass it on to my design team. So talk to Texas Heritage. He goes, "Yeah, give me a drawing. I'll make everything you want." And so I'm on my second apron right now.
Nice.
So in that apron, I've got usually a couple WWing pencils, the clear finish, the 2-stage Palomino sharpener. I've got a 6-inch rule. I've got kind of a blunt nose all-around knife. It's great for peeling off blue tape. It's because it doesn't cut into the blue tape as you peel it. I have the little the break off.
Is that in your blue tape article? The knife?
Probably?
Okay.
Yeah. So I have an Olfa. Is that the brand? The little snap off blade.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Mhm.
I love that. I just started using that. It's great because now you've always got something super sharp. Usually a couple grease pencils, like a China marker, a red and a black China marker. I've got a 6-inch combination square. I've got a 16-foot Stanley tape measure. I've got a pair of scrapers, card scrapers in one pocket, and I usually have 3 or 4 of that little thickness gauge blocks. They look like sticks of gum in different
yeah.
sizes for machine setups. Normally have a bunch of those around, and then pockets full of sawdust. So
Yes.
That's why you've gone through a few of these. You're packing it in, man. You got a lot.
Well, it's a tool chest and a vest.
It's a tool chest and a vest. Yes, very well put.
It's a
I never used to wear an apron until I started teaching, and you're walking around these big shops and you're going back and forth, setting up machines. And I started wearing aprons then, and I've been wearing them for quite a while now. I feel not dressed properly without it. It's
There
like
you go.
rituals of going into the shop. You go into the shop. If you're not putting on your apron, you're not serious about being out. So
Okay. I mean, I rib my wife for the objects in her purse. I hope you don't have the same conversations because you rival.
He's got a kangaroo pouch on his.
It's like the bag of holding, It's like, what are you going to reach in and find now? Oh, hey, all very good things. I mean, the things obviously you use on a regular basis and for all good.
Yeah.
A knife, a rule, pencils, like all those things make sense.
Yeah.
To have at the ready.
Yeah, before the apron, I had like the number 2 Ticonderoga pencils, and they were just spread out all over the shop.
And there's just marbles all over.
But then you carry a pencil in your apron, it gets dull because you use that same one over and over. And the sharpener was super key. That was a life-changing event. But then the dust collector on-off switch remote hanging from a D-ring on the side of the apron is key.
Yep.
Nice.
It's a utility belt. It's a true utility belt.
Yes, me and Batman.
Well, I'm with you. I like that. Unfortunately, here in Texas, it's a little too hot to wear an apron, but I do have the nail apron
pouch.
that Texas Heritage makes. Yeah, so I get by. I can't fit
all that.
Couldn't fit all that, but I can fit what I need.
Yeah, I like a knife, a pencil, a tape measure. I mean, the staples of your, like what's your work for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next, go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just next question. Who has influenced you the most? Now, this could be a lot because you've done a lot of things.
Yeah, this is tough because are we talking, life in general, woodworking specific?
However you want to interpret
I was gonna say, take it where you want it.
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm going to say nice.
Fine Woodworking Magazine.
I mean, I think in terms of someone who's really shaped kind of my woodworking and has inspired me in terms of just the way they live their lives and shape their careers is probably Chris Bexford up in Maine. Is crabby as he can be, man. He's a good guy, and so a lot of his articles. Again, when I first came to find woodworking and was kind of relearning the craft, and he does kind of a shaker-ish style, but it's very simple, very unadorned. I learned how to cut dovetails reading a Fine Woodworking magazine article before I came to the magazine, and learned them from Chris. And he had done a little glass front bookcase in one of the issues, and looking at it at first glance, it was just so simple, like the simplest thing you could ever think of. And this was way before I learned that simple doesn't mean easy. Simple can be really hard to get right. And then just getting into it and all the processes and all of the workmanship that went into something that didn't show off and shout that this is special. Just that kind of sense of maybe humility or maybe sense of patience in that I'm going to build this. And at first glance, people are just going to say, oh, that's nice, and then maybe discover things over time, over months, over years of living with something. So I think that approach of, make it right, don't show off. And then he's had, a number of other articles. He did a great article on wood movement, all about wood movement building to allow boards to do what they naturally want to do. And so, yeah, I think Chris is probably, again, among a handful of people. Steve Ladd and Michael Fortune are both brilliant engineering minds coming from two different ways. I like people who think through the process, and they both subscribe to the notion that everything in woodworking can be distilled down to very simple steps. There could be a lot of them, but they can be very simple. And if something you're approaching is too difficult, it probably means you haven't gotten to that right solution yet. So, yeah. So Chris Bexford and everyone else who's ever written for Fine Woodworking, I'll throw those guys in there as well.
Outstanding.
All right. Next question. What is your woodworking white whale?
So this is something I would aspire to make, but maybe haven't made yet. Is this
something that haunts your woodworking dreams?
Yep.
Building my own house.
Wow. That would be big, right?
From square one. It's not in the offing right now. And if I were to build my own house now, I would use the term build rather loosely in terms that I would direct someone to build a house in the way.
You would be the general contractor.
What? Yeah, GC or
on site.
Yeah. Or what would you cleat hold of? You're not a plumber, okay. You're not an electrician, fine. But where would you focus your skill?
If there's a floor, walls, and a ceiling, I'll do the rest.
Okay.
So all the
trims built in.
Flooring, maybe some flooring.
Yeah.
Not flooring. Come on.
Nah.
Oh, I got the Shaper Origin though. I put my nice little compass rose in the middle of the floor.
There you go.
There you go.
Fancy. You're not just building a house. You're building a spectacle.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah. I mean, like the arts and crafts little bungalow. That's kind of, I think, my ideal architectural ideal. Something feels super hand hewn.
You're gonna go the Esherick route where it's like latches and
no, it's a little. I mean, I get that. That's fine. Like the Sam Malouf house with the spiral staircase and all that. I don't know. See, now you got me thinking in those terms. Yeah, sure.
It's a long time to go without a staircase. So if you're gonna wait for me to build the staircase, it's a long time to go without stairs.
Oh, that's great. All right, Mike, our fourth question. What is your number one tip for fellow woodworkers? And I should add, if the tip is good enough, Fine Woodworking will send you the Lee Nielsen Bach plane. Isn't that what they do for the number one tip reader?
It's a long journey. Just enjoy the process and don't worry about getting to that finish line. It's a great craft to be a part of. There's always going to be a challenge, and just do your best, call it good, and move on.
Excellent.
That's a great tip. Yeah, is the old enemy was it better is the enemy of good or something along those lines? Progress instead of perfection. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you go, your better is going to get better.
Yeah. And then Michael Fortune quote I love. He said, "If you always hit the target, maybe you're standing too close."
Nice.
Nice one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
Progress. Yeah, progress to get better, because if you met it,
Right. You stay in your
Try it.
comfort zone. Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
moving forward.
try
Yep.
a little harder and go
Challenge
forward.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. What is your go-to finish?
Combination, either shellac on its own or wiping varnish on its own, or shellac and wiping varnish in tandem.
Which goes first?
Shellac for little stuff, wiping varnish for big stuff, shellac for little stuff, and then varnish on top of the shellac on the higher wear areas or where you need more protection. It's a perfect combination. They really complement each other. I think if you learn those two finishes, then, unless you get into coloring or special effects or fuming, it's all you need.
So when you're going over with varnish, you're not being real picky about the shellac. It's just sort of a sealer.
Yeah.
sealer type.
Yeah, I mean, I love shellac on woods without a lot of chatoyance and luster, like on white oak, ash. I'll do a wash coat of shellac on everything, sand it down, and then the wiping varnish, super thin coats. It builds up really, really fast on something with a really high luster, cherry, curly maple. Bite the bullet, prep as best as you can, and go straight with oil-based wiping varnish to really pop that. But little stuff, boxes, shelves, picture frames, shellac is so easy, especially since those little things tend to be gifts and you're up till the middle of the night getting those.
Just trying to get them
That's
out.
never happened to me.
You gotta
Never,
beat the-
ever,
Beat
ever
the
happened.
shipping deadline for Christmas.
I love teaching on a small project in class, teaching people shellac, because amazingly, it's something people don't have a lot of experience with, or they've had really bad experience with it, but they see how simple it is to get something that looks and feels really good, really, really fast. And a lot of times, over a 6-day class, that can be the thing they're most excited about. It's like, oh, come on, what about the other 5.5 days? That was pretty good too. But yeah, learn shellac. Yeah, get yourself a can of seal coat, thin it 50-50 with denatured alcohol. Get yourself an old t-shirt, cut it up into squares, put on a coat, let it dry, sand it smooth, wipe on a few more coats, finish up with steel wool and wax. That's it.
Nice.
Perfect every time.
You act like you've done it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, with that, Mike, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Pekovich Woodworks on Instagram, pekovichwoodworks.com, and findwoodworking.com for a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. Promise it won't be almost 500 episodes before we have you on again.
Over 500 episodes. That's remarkable.
Wild. Thanks for having me. This has been a blast. You guys are great. I've had a lot of
Thanks,
fun.
Mike.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike. It's
Mike.
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.